Guten Morgen, guten Tag, guten Abend. So today we have Kapitel 19, which is was, wer, wen, wem, and wessen. So we've encountered a lot of these before, but this is a review and we'll put them all together so that we can see them all next to each other and really make sure we're clear on how they all work. So wer means who, which we've had for a long time, and it's the nominative, right? Who as in the subject of the sentence or maybe the predicate noun. And then wen is the accusative meaning whom. So it has to be the direct object of the sentence or after an accusative preposition. And then wem is the dative form meaning to whom or for whom. So it has to be the indirect object or follow a dative preposition. So they all mean the same thing, but they're used for either nominative, accusative, or dative. So we have Jens kommt heute Abend mit. So Jens is of course the subject of the sentence. Jens is coming with tonight. Wer kommt heute Abend mit would be the same sentence but as a question, and we don't know who's coming with tonight. So we say who's coming with tonight, and the answer is Jens. But you can see how in both of those sentences that's the subject. Wer or Jens, same situation, same sentence. And so you can see how wer is the subject and Jens is also the subject. So wer is nominative, it's a subject, meaning who. And then of course you could replace it with a pronoun and you can say kommt heute Abend mit, and that's also the subject, right? So wer, nominative. Wer is the nominative for subjects. But what if we want wen? That would be something like wen hast du gesehen? Whom did you see? And then the answer might be, ich habe Jens gesehen, I saw Jens. And so the thing is, when you see ich habe Jens gesehen, it's clear that Jens is the direct object. I saw whom? Who received the action of the seeing? That's Jens. So Jens is the direct object. And so it's the same thing in the question, you saw whom? I saw Jens. So it's the direct object. Wen is the accusative direct object. And you could also do it with a pronoun. You could say, ich habe ihn gesehen. I saw him. It's also the direct object. It is also an accusative. Yeah. So wen is the accusative for direct objects and for pronouns, and then for prepositions that require accusative. So we can try wem. So wem gibst du das Buch? To whom do you give the book? Ich gebe meiner Mutter das Buch. So when we say, ich gebe meiner Mutter das Buch, it's clear that meiner Mutter is the indirect object because we're answering to whom or for whom do I give the book, right? So meiner Mutter is in the dative, it's the indirect object. And so you can see how wem is playing the same role in the sentence because we have all the same elements. We have subject gives the book to the mother, subject gives the book to the mother, subject gives the book to whom? It's the indirect object. And then you could also use a pronoun and say, ich gebe ihr das Buch, which is our dative feminine pronoun. Same thing, dative. So wem is to replace a dative, meaning to whom or for whom. And then we have wer ist das? Who is that? Nominative. That's nominative. Wen hast du eingeladen? Whom did you invite? That's going to be accusative because du is actually the subject. And then you invited whom? You invited whom? That's the direct object. Wem gibst du das Buch? To whom do you give the book? That's the example of the dative. To whom you give the book to whom? Dative. Yeah. So let's try these. What if we wanted to say, ist der Mann im Garten? Is the man in the garden? We would say, der Briefträger. So the person would answer, or would say, wer ist der Mann im Garten? Who is the man in the yard or in the garden? The mailman. So it's like when you answer, it matches. Wer is the nominative. When we ask wer, we're looking for a nominative. We're missing the subject of the sentence. That's why we're asking. And so the person answers with a nominative because that's what we were asking for. Der Briefträger. See how that's in the nominative? What about this one? Wen laden wir zur Party ein? So it's like, whom do we invite to the party? But in English, you might just say who. Who are we inviting to the party? But then in German, you wouldn't mix up wer and wen because it would change the It would just change the way the person understood the sentence. So, wen is then the question word. Like we don't know who we're inviting to the party, so it's just wen, and it's the direct object. But then when the person answers, they say meinen Freund Hannes. So see how that's in the it's in the accusative. So the person answers with we're inviting my friend Hannes to the party, right? So it's in the accusative. So both the question word and the answer are in the accusative because they refer to the same person. And then we have, wem schenkst du diesen Starbucks-Gutschein? To whom are you giving this Starbucks gift card? And then the person answers, meinem Cousin. So wem, to whom, and then meinem Cousin, see how that's in the dative, to my cousin, meinem Cousin. Yeah. Okay, so for this one, ist Angela Merkel die Bundeskanzlerin von Deutschland? Imagine what might go here. That is wer. So you want to say, wer ist Angela Merkel? Who is Angela Merkel? She's the Chancellor of Germany for a little while longer. And then we have this one. So something rufst du an. We want to say like, who are you calling? But then the answer is in, the corresponding answer is in the accusative. So it's wen rufst du an? Whom are you calling? Because you call whom, it's the direct object. So direct object is in the accusative. Hilfst du bei den Hausaufgaben? So remember, helfen is actually a verb that takes a dative object. So we want to say, you help whom with the homework, but the whom needs to be dative because helfen triggers a dative object. So it's going to be wem. Wem hilfst du bei den Hausaufgaben? Whom are you helping with the homework? Meiner Nichte. I'm helping my niece. And so Nichte is feminine, so meiner Nichte is then the dative feminine. So wem is the dative, meiner Nichte is in the dative. Okay, so we go back to wer and was, right? So wer is what we were just doing. The interrogatives meaning question words. So question word pronouns. Wer is who. And then was is just what, right? So wer is obviously for people, you would call who, and then was is for objects. So, and ideas, right? Wer is used to inquire about persons and has declensional forms closely related to der, like we had quite a long time ago. And was is about things, concepts, actions, yeah. So if you think about wer, it looks similar to der. Wen looks similar to den, wem, dem. And then wessen looks kind of like des. It's got an S in it, but it looks a little different than the others. And then was doesn't change. The nominative and the accusative, it can be was. And then with the other ones, you can't really do it. There are other ways to express like to what in the dative or of what in the genitive. There are other words that can fill that role, but was is just for those two. So, wer ist dieser Mann? Who is this man? Wer ist? Who is? Was ist sein Beruf? What is his occupation? Was ist? What is? Wen besuchen Sie in Europa? Whom are you visiting in Europe? And so in English, not everybody has a grasp of who and whom, and it's not really that important in English. But in German, you have to do the right one. Otherwise, it sounds, if you said, wer besuchen Sie in Europa? First of all, that would be wrong conjugation because wer is conjugated like singular. It's conjugated like er. Wer ist singular. It's like saying er ist, right? So if you said wer besuchen, that's already conjugated wrong. But imagine if it were like er, right? If it was wen besucht er, whom does he visit? But if you used wer, like the wrong one, wer besucht er, then you got two nominatives in there. And it's just, it would totally confuse your listener. They wouldn't know who the subject was. Yeah. Was machen Sie dort? What are you doing there? Very similar to English. What make you there? What are you doing there? Was wollen Sie kaufen? What do you want to buy? What want you to buy? Mit wem haben Sie gesprochen? With whom? This is similar to English. With whom? Mit wem. So mit always triggers the dative. So that's why you have wem there. Mit wem? With whom? And then, wem gehört dieses Buch? To whom does this book belong? So, wem meaning to whom. Gehört gehören, to belong to, always triggers the dative. Wessen Wörterbuch ist das? Whose dictionary is that? Yeah. So with wessen, it's always just wessen, and then whatever object it is that someone owns, whose, whatever. Wessen, whatever it is. Wessen Wörterbuch ist das? Yeah. So that's what we had a while ago. When we first learned the genitive, we did this exercise. Hopefully doesn't feel like too long ago, but this is something we did when we did the genitive. So wessen is the question word for the genitive, meaning whose, and then that's in all the questions, and then the answers have, of course, genitive constructions in them. So we did this, where we said, wessen Fahrrad ist das? Whose bike is that? And then the answer is, das ist das Fahrrad meines Bruders. That's my brother's bike, the bike of my brother. You say, wessen Buch ist das? Whose book is that? Das ist das Buch meines Vaters. Whose? My father's book. Wessen Uhr ist das? Das ist die Uhr meiner Tante. Wessen Pullover ist das? That's my girlfriend's sweater. Wessen Auto ist das? Das ist das Auto eines Freundes. Wessen Handy ist das? Whose cell phone is that? Das ist das Handy der Lehrerin. All the genitives. Wessen Wohnwagen ist das? Whose motorhome is that? Das ist der Wohnwagen meiner Eltern. Wessen Kind ist das? Whose kid is this? Whose child is this? Wessen Kind? Whose child? Das ist das Kind des Mannes dort drüben. So wessen for whose. You just do wessen plus the noun. Yeah. Okay. In the event that these interrogatives act as a predicate complement with the verb sign, this is predicate complement here is the same as predicate noun. We call it predicate. It's the same. Complement means it could be an adjective. Complement just means something that comes after, anything that sort of completes the sentence after the noun or after the verb. So predicate noun is one type of predicate complement, but it could be something else. But in this case, we're talking about predicate nouns. So in the event that these interrogatives act as a predicate noun with the verb sein, keep in mind that the verb agrees in number, not with the singular interrogative, as always, but with the subject that follows the verb in these questions. So normally you would say, wer ist, who is, right? And then when you ask, get back to that slide. When you ask, wer ist, with dieser Mann, you know that it's singular, right? But you could also say like, wer ist, we had one with the, wer ist der Mann im Garten? Imagine if we just didn't have der Mann. It would be, wer ist im Garten? Who is in the yard, right? And imagine you could answer in the plural. If you're saying who is in the yard, maybe it's 3 people in the yard, multiple people in the yard. So you could say wer ist, but then the person might answer with something plural because you don't know how many people. That's why you're asking. So the thing is, in general, wer takes that singular, usually it's wer ist. Even if the answer might be plural, but you don't know. But in a case like this, if you're going to mention someone plural, like die Leute, these people, it's plural, then of course you're going to conjugate that verb to the plural because you know it's plural already, right? So wer sind diese Leute? Who are these people? Versus, I guess it's the same as English, like who is in the garden? Even though it might be plural, right? But if you say, who are these people? You don't say, who is these people? Who are these people? So same in German. Wer sind diese Leute? Was sind ihre Namen? And then same as in English, what are their names? Not like what is their names or something. What are their names? I guess the part that might be tricky is that was is singular. It seems singular, right? What? And so you might be like confused by was sind, because it looks like it's not conjugated right. Like it should be was ist, right? But ihre Namen counts kind of as a subject. It's a predicate noun, but it kind of counts as the subject. So it's wer sind and was sind. Who are and what are their names, yeah. So when there's no clear antecedent, the relative pronouns wer, wen, wem, and wessen are used to indicate the person in question. Yeah, and then was is used for things, concepts, actions. In this case, wer means he who, whoever, anyone who. And then was can also mean whatever, that which, or that. So, for example, wer nicht für uns ist, ist gegen uns. So, wer nicht, so wer means who, right? But in this case, if you use it as, usually it's a question word. Wer ist da? Who is there, right? But when it's not part of a question, it's saying like more whoever is not for us. So it's also he who, or anyone who, or whoever. Yeah, so if you see it to start a statement and not a question, then it'll be like this. Whoever, wer nicht, who is not for us, but it doesn't really sound that good in English. He who, or whoever, yeah. Okay, so of course this reminded me of something. Whoever is not for us is against us. It reminded me of Star Wars Episode 3. And of course you can find this scene in the German dubbed version on YouTube. Anakin says, wenn du nicht für mich bist, dann bist du mein Feind. So we can try to translate this. If you know the movie well, you already know what this means. Wenn du nicht für mich bist, if you are not for me, dann bist du mein Feind, then you are my enemy. And in the actual English script says, if you're not with me, then you're my enemy. And this slightly different here, the way they translated it, if you're not for me, then you're my enemy. Same concept though. So he doesn't say exactly whoever is not with me is against me, but he says a similar thing. But he could have said, wer nicht für mich ist gegen mich. So it's a similar idea, and I rewrote it to match this this structure we just saw. So wer nicht für mich ist gegen mich would be more like whoever is not with me is against me, right? Wer, whoever. Yeah. So then I was reminded of another place where I had read the same sentence. The Lutherbibel, Matthäus 12:30. So in the book of Matthew, this is Jesus, and he says, wer nicht mit mir ist gegen mich. Whoever is not with me, he is against me. Der ist, he is, yeah. So that is wer meaning whoever, and you see how it's not a question, it's a statement, so whoever. And then we saw those alternate translations on the slide from the book a few slides ago. And so you have whoever, and then it's really interesting because the different translations use these alternatives for translating wer as not a question word. So whoever is not with me is against me, but then the King James Version says he that is not with me is against me. So that's another option. He that is not with me, that is against me, sounds a little bit more poetic, not quite as mundane sounding. And then the New International Version says whoever is not with me is against me. Yeah, so you can see how King James Version obviously wants to sound more poetic and maybe a little more archaic, and then the New International Version wants to just make it as plain and make it as readable as possible. So that would be whoever is not with me is against me. Yeah. So then we have a few more examples. Wer zuletzt lacht, lacht am besten. He who laughs last laughs best. Yeah. So you say whoever would also work. Whoever laughs last, he who, same thing. Wir wissen nicht, was wir machen wollen. We don't know what we want to do. So this is just was, right? We don't know what. Was, yeah. Ich weiß nicht, mit wem ich sprechen soll. I don't know with whom I'm supposed to speak. Mit wem, with whom. Yeah. Wessen Wagen das ist, möchte die Polizei erfahren. Yeah. So this is a very characteristic thing of German to start it out this way. English speakers probably wouldn't do it this way, but if to translate it super literally is, whose car this is, the police would like to find out, right? Whose car this is, police would like to find out. So of course, it sounds better in English to say the police would like to find out whose car that is. Wessen Wagen das ist, whose car that is. Yeah. But of course, you can just use it. It doesn't have to be a question. It can be part of a statement. Maxims and warnings are often expressed with a relative clause introduced by wer, wen, wem, or wessen, preceding the main clause, and then beginning with a demonstrative pronoun, der, yeah, so he, whoever this, then this, right? I think that was the same thing we had here. Wer, and then the next clause beginning with der. So maxims and warnings, for example, like we just had in the book of Matthew. So, wer seine Eltern ehrt, he who honors his parents, der ehrt Gott. So it's implied der would be like he again, but in English you don't necessarily have to do that again. So he who honors his parents, he honors God, der ehrt Gott. Yeah. Wen die Götter verderben wollen, den schlagen sie mit Blindheit. Whomever the gods wish to ruin, they strike with blindness. So, yeah, you can see die Götter is this subject here. The gods wish to ruin a direct object, right? And then, so that's why it's wen. And then sie is then the subject in this next one. They strike him with blindness. And so him is not repeated, but it's implied with den. Yeah. Okay, so now we just have a little exercise for you to do before moving on to the next unit. So these are exchanges between the grandchild and the hard of hearing grandpa. Note the interrogative pronouns and determine whether they're nominative, accusative, dative, and genitive. So the child says something, and then the grandpa doesn't hear part of it. And so he has to ask for that sentence again and put the question word in place of what he didn't hear. So he's going to say, like, whom did you meet up with yesterday? Or to whom did you give a present? Or who is going to the beach tomorrow? Or whose bike is that? Yeah, so just translate those little dialogues. And that's all for this unit. So viel Spaß beim Übersetzen, have fun with those translations und wir sehen uns im nächsten Video. Tschüss, bis gleich.